This is Matthew Kratter's Bitcoin University, and today I want to talk about rebooting America with Bitcoin. Now, as a former academic, I'm always coming up with boring titles in my head like this: gradualism, accelerationism, and Bitcoin adoption. This was my idea for yesterday's video, and the basic conceit was this: that the presidential candidate whose policies lead most quickly to US dollar debasement is actually in reality the most pro-Bitcoin candidate, rather than the candidate who says the nicest things about Bitcoin and Bitcoiners. Faster Bitcoin adoption, the argument goes, comes from a monetary crisis rather than from the slow gradualism of trying to convince people that Bitcoin is better than fiat. Therefore, due to her economic platform, price controls, deficit widening, tax credits, etc., I argued in that video that Kamala is actually the most pro-Bitcoin candidate. I had that really boring title, gradualism, accelerationism, and Bitcoin adoption, so I decided to change it and make it a little bit more controversial and eye-catching, so I called it Kamala, the real Bitcoin candidate, and I included a Roman mosaic of a late empress. That Roman mosaic picture that looks nothing like Kamala should have been a tip-off that this video is much more than a typical election season piece, as well as a section pointing out how Trump and Vance's policies could also massively widen the deficit through a war with Iran. Nevertheless, lots of people got really mad, unsubscribed, asked who was funding me, who paid you to do this video, and of course I disclosed that I am paid by the Chinese Communist Party to undermine the U.S. To be clear, I love America. I was born here. I've lived here all my life. I've also voted in most elections, studying up on the issues, trying to parse policies and character, trying to do the right thing. But the end result has always felt like pushing the closed doors button or the closed door button of an elevator. You can't really tell if it does anything. It might just make you feel better. Today, voting feels a lot more like arranging chairs on the Titanic. It's not really clear what any presidential candidate can do to slow the debt train, which is probably the only real thing that matters from a large perspective. And even the most outspoken and anti-establishment candidates, like Trump, for example, he ran huge deficits in his first term, even with the Republican majority in Congress, and he did not drain the swamp. Perhaps not because he didn't want to, but rather perhaps because even the president these days can't overcome the power of the deep state and the inertia of captured agencies. So I got to thinking, what if there's a better way to reboot America? And that's why I remembered Hayek's video. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth watching.
Ever done any good? I don't think it has. I think it has done only harm. And that's why I'm now pleading for what I've called denationalization of money. I don't believe that we shall ever have a good money again before we take the thing out of the hands of government. Because we can't take them violently out of the hands of government. All we can do is, by some sly roundabout way, introduce something they can't stop.
And this is really what Satoshi did with his invention of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is that sly roundabout way that we bring America, and hopefully the rest of the world as well, back to the constitutional foundation and the civilizational foundation of hard money, which in the U.S. Constitution was originally silver and gold, but which make no sense in a modern digital world. We definitely need sound money. We need hard money that's not easy for a government to print up, but we don't need physical assets. What we need are digital assets. And so in many ways, Bitcoin really is the fulfillment of Hayek's prophecy. And then I began to ask myself, might there also be another way to use other protocols to do similar things? So Bitcoin brings back silver and gold, the constitutional silver and gold. What about Nostr? Nostr, for example, is a decentralized, unstoppable free speech platform. Nostr brings back First Amendment protections and snatches back the public square from social media companies like Meta and X. It's not really the government that censors speech these days. It does it rather through big tech. And so we need a sly roundabout way of preserving the First Amendment without having to rely on the good graces of the US government or the Supreme Court. With Nostr, you can have multiple anonymous accounts that allow you to say whatever you want without fear of cancellation or deplatforming. Something similar is taking place with the Second Amendment thanks to the advent of cheap consumer 3D printers, which I will have to leave to your imaginations for now for obvious reasons. Conclusion, might there be a way to clone U.S. constitutional protections for the world in a sly roundabout way using freedom tech like Bitcoin, Noster, 3D printers, etc.? So in conclusion, vote your conscience at the ballot box. But I think everywhere else in your life, vote using Freedom Tech. Vote for Freedom Tech with your actions by learning to use things like Bitcoin and Nostr and 3D printers, and sharing these ideas as well with other freedom-minded people. Ultimately, rights are not something dispensed from on high by our masters that we need to beg for or vote for at elections. Rights are not given, but they are taken. And I'll repeat that because it's so important. Rights are not given, but they are taken. And every generation has to reassert this and take their rights. If you want to learn more about Noster, I will link to this video in the description notes below. Unstoppable Money, which is Bitcoin, and Unstoppable Free Speech, which is Noster. And in that video, and I'll share it here as well, I have my NPub if you want to look me up on Primal or Damus or any of the other free Noster apps that I do talk about in that video. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.